Your book is phenomenal. I enjoyed it immensely. I've been a fan of SNL since I can remember. So let's start with a title, A Very Punchable Face. I think most people like find that funny. And there's like a theme of self-deprecation throughout the book. So what was the process behind your deciding on a title? Because I know the title of your first book is actually kind of a big decision.
It is. It's like with music, you put out an album, the first one can just be your name. It's easy. No, that's just like the industry standard. You got an eponymous album, but that's, with books, you got to actually think about it. I also, before I start, wanted to thank you. I'm very honored that you agreed to do this and talk to me. And I'm a big fan of yours. And I think what you brought to the campaign was such an elevated and fresh set of ideas. And you were just really fun to watch. And also you like, it was the only new ideas that were out there. And I really, I don't know, I gained like a whole new, like idea of what a candidate could be from watching you. And I hope that your ideas continue and that you continue and make them a reality, because it was really inspiring to see. So thank you. And thank you for doing this, because it means a lot. I wrote about there's a lot of self-deprecating and humiliating things in my book. I really wanted my book to be entertaining. I didn't want it to be trying to be overly educational or pedantic in any way, or I didn't want it to be just taking weird victory laps about anything, or just like name dropping stuff. I wanted it to be stories that I thought were that were funny and that people would like reading. And I ran everything through that filter. And it turns out a lot of those stories ended up being ones where I was injured, or humiliated, or emotionally abused, or just by my own dumb decisions, got injured or put in a terrible position. And I thought, that would be entertaining. And it seems like people do enjoy when injurious things happen to me.
Well, I confess that after reading your book, like, you did start to resemble one of those action movie heroes in my mind, where like you take your shirt off and then there's like this scar from that. This is from like the Google mishap. This is from the bike. This is from the surfing. so you started to resemble that kind of figure in my mind.
Wow.
You're also, as we all know, you're engaged to like a superhero that everyone's growing up with. So there's that too. Maybe that's another reason why you seem like an action hero.
I was going to say a real superhero, but also that's not. It is a movie, I guess.
So I confess to being, and this is one thing I liked about your book too, is that like your book was very, very personal, but like you said, it wasn't like a name dropping type book. It was like personal about your childhood, personal about your formative experiences, which were very funny, like consistently. I feel like I understand Staten Island better thanks to your book, and also I happen to have seen King of Staten Island relatively recently, and so like between that and your book, like I feel like I understand the fifth borough. Hopefully it's not an insult to call it the fifth borough.
That's one of the nicest things anyone's ever said about Staten Island.
Staten Island, we're part of New York. It's true, it's real.
We swear.
And so you went from Staten Island, you went to high school in the city, which also had many, many funny anecdotes. Certainly the most affecting, very, very quintessentially New York story, I thought, was the story of your mom and her bravery during 9/11. And I was in New York on that day. Like, I remember when the towers fell. It was a beautiful day in terms of the weather, like, not a cloud in the sky. And then you hear that a plane crashed in the World Trade Center. And I was part of the crowd of thousands that just started walking away from downtown. Like, I was near the Empire State Building. I showed up to work, and then this happens. And then everyone in the office is like, we should get the heck out of here. And then we start walking north. But your mom did the opposite. Your mom actually headed towards the towers, which to me is probably the most heroic thing I can imagine doing. Having been on the island that day, like, every human instinct is like go away from what is happening, and she actually went towards it.
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know how that instinct happens. I think you probably don't know until that moment happens how you're going to handle it. And I think it probably for her came from knowing that all her, all the firefighters that she knew and worked with and loved were all in there, were closer or near the buildings, and I think she genuinely wanted to help them, and help get them out of that situation or help treat them. I don't think she ever imagined that the buildings would both fall. I think that she didn't. She knew they had been hit, and she kind of gradually figured out once the Pentagon had been hit that there was clearly a coordinated terrorist act. But I don't think she ever thought structurally something like that would happen. I mean, it was so crazy to start seeing happening, because you don't, even when things get hit, you just don't expect that to happen. So maybe she, I don't know that she ever thought that I don't think she could imagine that would have happened. Yeah.
Well, that chapter certainly humanized you and your family in an incredible way, because frankly, people look at you and think, oh, SNL, famous celebrity, engaged to a celebrity. And then when you read about your mom rushing towards the towers, the fact that her life was saved twice by firemen who were right there with her, that the people she was with lost their lives that day. And then you imagine, you, and obviously, people associate this with your castmate Pete Davidson as well. Like you realize that the human condition, it's your family, it's Pete's family, it's the 343 families that got devastated that day, who are families of firefighters, and it seems like your family has so much of the firefighter DNA, in your your family's history. I felt like I got to know you better as a result of sharing in that experience.
It was, it's the community I knew the most. And it was, my grandfather was a fireman. My great grandfather was a fireman. All my cousins and my uncles, everyone who lives on the block where my whole family lived, mostly on Staten Island, were all in the fire department. So I knew it forever as this really fun community of all these, I feel like firefighters are some of the funniest people, and really a loving group of people. And then after that, there was a whole other, obviously element to it. And it was even more of a community, but in a whole different kind of way. And I thought that one of the most, the things that my mom said that was the craziest to me was, when I remember going to visit the fire department headquarters, where they keep basically a wall of the names of all the firefighters who died in the line of duty. And she said that in the first 100 years of the department, they filled one wall. And then that day on September 11th, they filled an entire other wall. That was what the sheer numbers for the department were. And Staten Island, obviously, including Pete's dad, was part of that wall, and a substantial part of that wall on Staten Island. So, I'm very proud of my mom, and that's why I wanted to write that chapter. And I really feel for her of going through that and losing colleagues like that.
Yeah, I was surprised by so much of your background, because I think the very high level view is you went to Harvard. That's one thing, and you had a really fun set of stories about Harvard, and so you don't think, mother works for the fire department, grandfather was a fireman. You think he went to Harvard, so maybe his parents were orthodontists or whatever.
Or his parents were president and vice president of Harvard, or something.
Yeah, or something, right? the Winklevi. And then when you went to Harvard too, you framed it in such human terms, where there's this Harvard mystique, and then you unpacked it in such a humble way. Thank you for listening in. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. If you did, Please do subscribe to Yang Speaks and click on notifications so we can let you know every time we have a new episode.